Throughout years working with people, in the beginning as a social worker, and in the last 6 years as a practitioner in the field of sexuality, I keep coming back to the same realization over and over again, that despite our similarities as our sexes and genetics, we're so unique and different in so many ways. And I keep repeating it, that in order to understand other human, we have to put ourselves in their shoes, because their unique experience and their unique expression can be totally opposite from my understanding of the world. My biggest invitation is not to assume, but ask, especially when we are talking about emotional and psychological field. We have general biological tendencies, as women have breasts and vagina and men have penises and testicles. Even those sexual organs might work differently, being affected by past experiences, social conditioning, religious conditioning, and education. We already explored how different we are in our previous models, how different we are perceiving love through our love languages, how differently we're learning things through perceiving information in a different way, and also how our psyche and our body responds to sexual activity and sexual stimulation. I will share with you my observation from working with people, men and women and couples, and also I will use as data my personal experience in dating. So what I noticed, and you might have noticed that as well, that women generally need more emotional intimacy in order to get ready for sex. I believe that this is conditioned biologically by women being able to give birth and therefore having higher level of awareness and responsibility for other life, other human being. So the fear of abandonment and rejection is generally higher in women than in men. While men, on the other side, they have a heightened awareness around performance and being good enough. By being good enough, meaning that putting enough effort to provide safety to the partner and also satisfy partner. Psychologist and researcher Brené Brown came up with shame and fear cycle that maybe some of you already know, where she was pointing out that biologically women are more conditioned to fear. They struggle more with dealing with fear, while men are generally struggling more with dealing with the feeling of shame or an inadequacy or not being good enough. And it's not going only to the status in the society, but also on a very simple biological level, being able to provide. So understanding those main different psychological patterns between women and men, we can imagine that sexual response should be also different. Therefore, females have a special need to feel safe in order to engage into sexual activity, and not only to engage, they can engage, but actually to really let go and experience the orgasm. While for men, the criteria of safety is not that important. However, they're much more focused in being able to provide pleasure and safety for their partner, whether it's a man or a woman. The focus is the same. How do I satisfy him or her? When you have this information, understanding this difference in primarily fears that we are experiencing as biological species, what conclusion can you come up with? Exactly, that some people need more safety in order to get aroused and have a good sexual experience, and others don't need that much of safety, but they need to make sure that they performed well and that everyone is happy. Generally, I would say that Women need intimacy to be sexual, and men need sex in order to be intimate. If you're watching this as a couple, maybe you would be interested to pause the video now and maybe have a little conversation about it, a little sharing. How does this information land for you? Can you resonate with that? And if you are watching this video solo, you can also write down your past experiences, your past relationship, and how you felt about it. In couples, you might have this experience that when you had a conflict, and maybe when the conflict wasn't fully resolved, and maybe you stonewalled for a while and it was an uncomfortable situation, but then slowly you made your way back to connect. However, that something was not fully resolved, and very often one partner cannot really get into sexual activity. They cannot fully open up because they don't feel safe. And there is another type of people who need to have sex after the conflict in order to feel more connected and break the ice from there and maybe reconnect emotionally again. This information and understanding how you are personally functioning and how your partner is functioning might help you to make your way back into connection after the conflict quicker and make your way back to sex. And also maybe to avoid blaming your partner for not feeling sexual or not wanting to have sex, because they might deeply inside still feel unsafe. And human sexuality was researched by scientists for a few hundred years now. And in the most profound research by Master and Jonson's, there was suggested a general type of psychosomatic arousal cycle and biological arousal cycle. They're slightly different, and we need to know both of them in order to be able to understand each other's needs. So, and let's look at the diagram of psychosexual arousal cycle. So over here we have 5 suggested stages, and those stages, they come in a cycle that repeats itself. As observed by Masters and Jonson, there is some similarity in how people respond sexually. So let's start from the upper arrow, which is emotional intimacy. For some people, emotional intimacy is a very important element of sexual arousal. They cannot get sexually aroused if they don't feel emotionally intimate and safe. And as diagram suggests, that emotional intimacy can motivate sexually neutral women, as suggested here, but I would say it applies for some men as well, to become sexually interested and aroused. When there is emotional intimacy, there is a safe space for the sexual stimuli to arise. And by sexual stimulus, I mean physical and emotional stimulation. It can be physical touch, or it can be flirting, or just talking about sex, or even fantasizing. So those sexual stimulus normally lead to sexual arousal. And sexual arousal here means like more biological sexual arousal, heightened heart rate, lubrication of sexual organs, and activation of erectile tissues in men and women. That leads to a strong sexual desire and sexual activity, which can result in emotional and physical satisfaction, which can mean an orgasm, or maybe not necessarily orgasm, but just the high level of arousal. And then cycle can continue. If at this last 5th stage climax didn't happen, then the cycle goes again. For some of us, all 5 stages are important. For other people, other stages are more important. And there is no particular beginning of this circle. People can start engaging in sexual activity at any stage. However, the shorter time between emotional intimacy and climax is, the lower level of physical satisfaction is there as well. So this is the psychosexual cycle of sexual arousal. And I would like us to look at another graph very quickly of biological arousal cycle, which are narrowed down more to the point of sexual activity and how differently people may experience orgasm, even though there are still some similarities. This data is also taken from research of Masters and Jonson, and I would say it's a little bit old research. However, I don't believe that our biological sexual responses changed a lot in the last 60 years. So let's look into that biological chart of sexual response. And over here you can see that there are some common responses in either sex. And one of them is where the person is never reaching the climax. However, the arousal going up quite quickly, and it can stay for a very long time into plateau stage and come down to sexual resolution also pretty slowly. Another common response in either sex is when the excitement is semi-slow and then it comes to a plateau stage, and after a short plateau period it culminates in the climax and excitement and arousal dropping pretty rapidly afterwards. In this particular research, males showed more stable sexual response than females, when for females it could vary. For males, in most of the cases it was same, which is, you see the purple line over here, pretty quick excitement, not very long plateau stage, and then culmination of the orgasm and even faster resolution. When some females showed this beautiful green graph where excitement is arousing, going higher than plateau level, and then there are few orgasms following one another. This orgasmic wave can go for much more than 3 times, and the resolution is pretty slow and long. So what information this chart is giving us, that men have tendency to get aroused quicker, to orgasm quicker, and quite quickly afterwards lose the excitement and interest in sexual activity. While in two graphs that women are sharing their orgasms among, it always takes way much more time for a woman to get aroused, to get to the plateau stage. Plateau stage is also a little bit longer for them, and then either to climax once or climax few times, or don't climax at all, and the resolution takes also much more time. When we will be looking into yoni and linga massage, we will talk about it more explicitly. In this video, I just wanted to demonstrate you visually how different we are and how important it is for us to understand our sexual response cycle, because this is something that doesn't really change throughout the life. It can be modified a little bit, so women can learn to experience orgasm quicker, or men can learn to last longer and be able to match their partners with their time scale of their pleasure. So our theory is finished for today. I invite you to do an exercise, a discussion with your partner about your response cycle. You will find some questions below, so you can journal if you're doing this course by yourself, or you can discuss it with your friends to share what is your sexual response and to find out what others' sexual response is. And I invite you today, after having all this information about how to memorize the sequence, how to perform the massage, what to be aware of, use all that and offer to one of you to receive a massage, and then another day you can exchange. If you feel you have enough energy to do the both massages today, that's great. But I generally feel that it's really nice to be on the receiver side, to receive this beautiful experience and then to rest or to make love if that feels right, and then do other part of exchange some other day. I hope this class was interesting and informative, and I see you next time.